It's Premier League All Access with me, Sam Matterface, talkSPORT's chief football correspondent. The Crookmeister, the Saltmeister is here. Good morning, Saltmeister. You okay?
I'm good. Yep, not too bad.
Good. So a little bit more energy, please. You know, try and be sort of like a little bit more relaxed. This is Christmas. We've only got a week to go.
You have got us out of bed at the crack of dawn, so you know it takes me a few minutes to warm up in the morning.
Well, there is a reason for that. I've got to go to Crystal Palace tonight, and I've got to get down to London. And I feel like I've only just got back from Newcastle United last night. I didn't get back to about 1:30 in the morning, and it was a really entertaining football match, I thought. I mean, listen, Newcastle weren't at their best. Fulham obviously definitely lack a little bit of a goal threat going forward, but it was a good match, and there was a bit of tension in the air, especially towards the end. And I don't know about you, Scott. There's something special about a local kid scoring the winner in a cup quarter-final, isn't there? I mean, it just feels good.
Yeah, and there's something special about going out with Crookie again. I mean, he's still probably recovering from the News Corporation Christmas do on Monday night. That's probably why he's still like that. But we had a good night. No, absolutely. I mean, Lewis Miley, when he burst onto the scene, and he did, and he's still a teenager, and that was a few years ago. It takes a bit of time when you're at a top club, and he's at a top club. So for him to come in to play in the position he played in, but still score the winner as well. That for me, it's about performance, not necessarily who scores that sort of winning moment, but it's about who plays well. But he ticked both boxes. And look, it was really important. Doesn't matter how they played after what happened at the weekend, that they found a way to still be the sort of reigning champions of this particular cup competition. And they're still in the draw.
Yeah, the defence continues to play Chelsea in the next round. Chelsea were pretty unimpressive against League One Cardiff. That first half, Scott, was an absolute stinker. Enzo Maresca made 11 changes. And I must admit, at half-time, all I could think of is this guy's just sort of trying to get himself the sack. What's going on here?
I feel like I'm repeating myself here. Look, I mean, it was poor first half. It was really poor, but he made the changes. He knew what he's doing. He's planning for towards the end of the season. As I said, I think last week, you got to win what's in front of you, the here and now. Cardiff away was always going to be difficult. Anybody who thinks
Stop it, Scott. Come off it.
Sam, anybody who thinks Cardiff away was going to be easy hasn't played those games.
No, I didn't think it's going to be easy, but the point is that we can't sit here and try and pretend that it's like going to Manchester United away or Liverpool away or whatever. The fact is that he got the team selection wrong and then he changed it. I mean, the narrative can't be he's a genius. He played with all of the kids in the first half because he wanted to test himself in the second by making great changes.
Don't become one of those where you're either up there or down there. He's a genius or he's the devil. It's not that. He wanted to make changes. He's given players opportunities. It didn't work. He brought on players and it did. Now, again, I go back to the fact of Cardiff away was not going to be easy. I don't care who you are. And the second 11 is not good enough. And everyone talks about the money they spend and they should be title defenders or title chasers in the Premier League. That second 11 is not good enough. And it's not easy. And I can speak from personal experience. If you've come in where lots of people have made changes or the whole team has changed. So there's no chance to develop with that particular type of player. Yes, it wasn't good enough. I agree with you. But again, this is a job to get in, get the job done, get out. And they did it in the end.
Yeah. And look, I want him to succeed. I want him to do a good job. But I just wish he'd help himself at times. It's a bit like Thomas Frank. I'm like, lads, come on. There are certain things that you can do to make things a little bit easier for you. Maybe do those. I don't know. It's just a suggestion. What can I say? City swept Brentford aside. They're through. Arsenal play Crystal Palace next Tuesday night. Crook, did you have I heard that you were obviously having your Christmas party this week. You know, I was working. I think I had more shots than both of you though, because I was at Manchester United 4, Bournemouth 4. But did you watch any of that game? Did you see it? Because it was great fun.
Yeah, do you know what? I remember a lot more about that game than I do the Wolves game the previous Monday night after we've been racing. So that tells me that I was a bit more responsible at this bash. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a brilliant football match. I thought going forward, as well as United have played for years, Maybe let's not talk about the defending and the goalkeeper, but they're still there or thereabouts, aren't they? Only a couple of points off where they want to be in terms of a Champions League place, and a couple of tough games to come. I'm sure we're going to get into Villa on Sunday. I'm going to be there for talkSPORT. I think I'm going to be watching through my fingers for a lot of that game, because this is just about as tough a game as you can get right now.
Okay, let's move on, because we've got a big weekend of Premier League action. Lots of stuff happening on Saturday, and we kick off at St James's Park, where Chelsea are in town. Newcastle beat Fulham in midweek. Now they take on Chelsea. It's another London visitor. A first goal for Yohan Wissa. It's going to please everyone, that, isn't it? I mean, they only had to wait 10 minutes for him to score on his first start. It was a proper poacher's goal, that, Scott, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it's the number 9 that they've been waiting for this season, isn't it? And they've seen down the years and down the decades. Look, it's going to take him time. The most important thing is he stays fit, that they look after him, they manage his minutes, because anyone who thinks is going to come in and suddenly be that player that they wanted from match day 1 back in August, it takes time, but that would have given him a lot of confidence. There's nothing like coming in, scoring in your first full game, and making that great first impression. So yeah, that takes a little bit of the heat off Nick Voltemada as well, and we'll have to wait and see how the two of them gel.
Yes, he's a different type of player to Voltemada, isn't he? And what he does is he allows Newcastle to press with a little bit more intensity, because he is so fast and he is quite willing to do those pressing movements. Voltemada is very different, wants to drop off, wants to link the play, wants to hold things up, wants to use his skill to be able to create little openings, and he relies on the two wingers to go beyond him. It's a different style of play depending on the striker that you play. For Eddie Howe, though, it's nice to have an alternative, isn't it? Because I don't think he's ever been in this situation, Crook, where he's had two strikers, not two that he can rely on.
No, not really. I mean, I'd go back to his days in the Championship when Bournemouth won promotion that year, and he played two up front with Callum Wilson, sort of the legs and the pace, and Jan Kimorgan was the big target man. But I don't think he's necessarily going to do that in the Premier League. I think Wissa is more of an Eddie Howe type player in many ways, particularly with the pressing, which is something you referenced during the television commentary as well. But as you say, it's nice to be able to rotate. I think Voltemada has already made himself a cult hero, but if they both stay 100% fit between now and the end of the season, I'd probably wager that Wissa will end up with more goals than the big German.
Yeah, well, Wissa is the player that they wanted to start the season with, and then drip Voltemada in as a different alternative throughout the course of the season. Because of injury, they were forced into doing it in a different way. So it's obviously gone a little bit sort of backwards in terms of the way they were trying to do it. He did have a situation where he had Isaac and Callum Wilson at one stage, didn't he? And he was sort of dovetailing between the two, but only very short because of Callum's fitness situation. I do feel as if there's a sort of narrative, especially in the Northeast, maybe not necessarily from Northeast journalists, but maybe a bit of social media, whatever. I don't know where it comes from, but there's almost feels as if everyone's waiting for Eddie to just get it wrong. Do you know what I mean, Scott? I know that sounds a little bit sort of maybe conspiracy theories, and I don't mean it to be like that. I'm just saying, I just get that little feeling that, I don't know, there's because it's been an inconsistent start to the season. Everyone's sort of just asking the question. I mean, he'll come through it because he always does, but I do think sometimes that if you especially look at the home record, 9 unbeaten at home, it feels a little bit unfair.
Yeah, look, I'm an Eddie Howe fan. I think he's an excellent coach. And when these, the Saudi owners came in, we're expecting, right, wow, hundreds of millions being spent. Oh, suddenly you're not allowed to, PSR. So it's almost there's this expectation that he must get Newcastle not just into the top 4, but at some point soon, especially when you get your CEO come in and said we'll be the biggest club in the world by 2030. I mean, I don't know where that comment has come from, because he's not allowed to. He's got one hand, if not 1.5 hands, tied behind his back. So the job that I think he's done, keeping them up, getting them into the Champions League, getting the combination of the Champions League and the Premier League, getting them back into the Champions League again, I think has been sensational, considering they haven't been, big spending in the way that people thought they would. The question is now, though, because people will be there. You're right. I think there are people waiting, wrongly, in my opinion, but he has to sort out this away form. It is a problem. Obviously, it was a great win at Everton, And Sunderland is Sunderland. You know, that's the derby. The form they're playing in is the best form they've been in years, even when they've been in the Premier League as well. But he has to sort out that away form, otherwise those doubters will be there. But again, it's a difficult thing to combine the Premier League and the Champions League. You know, it's not an easy thing to do. So to get back up there, he has to sort out the mentality of what's going on away from home, because the home form is there. Everyone can see that.
It's not an easy thing to do when you're Newcastle United and, as you've already articulated, cannot spend the money that the others can. So you don't have the depth of squad that the others do. For example, no Botman, no Livramento for the weekend because he's injured. No Dan Burn, who's got a punctured lung and a broken rib. You know, the injuries all sort of congested in that central area, that defensive area. Lewis Hall's got a hamstring injury. You know, Kieran Trippier's out at the moment. Lewis Miley played right back on Wednesday night. God knows who's going to play left back on Saturday. Alejandro Garnacho and Pedro Neto will be licking their lips, won't they, about the prospect of coming up against a makeshift defence. Let's talk a little bit about the Chelsea setup, because the second stringers didn't impress at the weekend. So you expect that Enzo Maresca will change everything again this weekend, and he needs to put a run of results together. I mean, they both do. Both Eddie Howe and Enzo Maresca need to put a run of results together just to sort of quieten the noise a little bit. Simon Jordan said in midweek that he wasn't impressed with Maresca. He said if he was a florist, he'd close on Valentine's Day. I mean, it's a nice line, but I suppose what he means is that he hasn't quite got the feel of what it needs to be a Premier League manager under very demanding owners, Crook. He's put himself in the firing line unnecessarily.
I think he could do with the trip to charm school, to be honest, because he's not
Simon
the
or
easiest
Enzo Maresca?
Definitely Enzo. So Simon can be very charming when he wants to be.
He can.
He's not the easiest bloke to deal with after a game. He was giving me short shrift in the tunnel. As I mentioned on Monday's podcast, he answered one question by shaking his head, which when we're on the radio, Enzo, this is not going to be great listening. And then obviously he's dropped the bombshell in the press conference. So I do wonder how he deals with the hierarchy. Does he treat them with the same contempt that he seems to treat the media with? I think he does see himself as a bit of a mini Pep Guardiola in that regard. Obviously, the difference is that Pep Guardiola's been there, got the T-shirt and got the medals to be able to behave in whatever manner he sees fit. And I can imagine he rubs players up the wrong way at times as well when he's telling them they're dropped for a particular game or they're not starting this game. And that's before you start talking about their away form, by the way. A lot's been made of Newcastle.
By the way, I don't think that's true, Crook. I don't think that's true at all. As far as I understand it, the players absolutely love him. They absolutely love him.
I think Raheem Sterling might say something different.
Yeah, but he's not in the first team squad. But the players that are involved, they adore him because he is with them every single day. He's on the training pitch with them every day. He's showing up. He's doing the coaching. He's out there. He puts on brilliant sessions, as far as I understand it, and he's very good in and around the training complex with them as individuals. That's what he feels his job is to be with them, those players. So I don't think there is a problem.
But
there.
when you're at a big club, Sam, you have to be able to deal with the media. In fairness,
agreed.
Ruben Amorim does that very well, and you have to be able to manage up. And obviously, Enzo's not doing that particularly well at this moment in time.
So I feel as if I'm in the Enzo Maresca fan club here, and it's not that that's the case. It's I want what's best for Chelsea Football Club, and I see a talented coach who, given the right tools, can actually take Chelsea, or at least challenge at the very, very top. We've talked about how he's learning himself. He's still in his third full season as a manager. But I genuinely think, and we've all been saying this, everybody who's played for Chelsea or been asked, stuff about Chelsea, he just needs a couple of senior pros. And I think he sees that. He knows how close they are, the pressure, the money's been spent, the expectation, the Alex Crook saying they should be right up there all the time and winning the Premier League. Well, just give me what I want and I think I can do it. And I think there's definitely an issue with the media. I think he can come across as more charming. I think he's got it in him to be charming, and he probably is with the players. But I think Crookie, he was the way he was because he knew what he just said or what he was about to say. So he was obviously in a mood with that. He's got to be careful. The single most important thing is I don't believe he'll get a better job than Chelsea Football Club And if he goes too far, there's only one winner, and it's not him. But he's just pushing the boundaries at the moment. And since then, and I get the journalists, and they've been trying to push him to enlarge on it and to go on even more, and he won't do that. Maybe he's been told, maybe he hasn't. He's just put it out there that he believes he wants a little bit more, and he thinks he can get Chelsea fans what they really, really want.
Yes, and I think he's absolutely right, by the way. But he is the manager of Chelsea Football Club, employed to coach the players that are given to him. That was the remit of the job he was given. We know that Pochettino didn't want to do it anymore because he was getting interference from upstairs. So Enzo Maresca knew what was coming down the track. The issue here is that he's decided on the 1 week where, after a really tough run of results, he has put a positive result on the board. Not easily, by the way. There were problems in that game. To come out and change a positive into a negative, and there was it felt like there was no reason to do that. And Crook's right; that's not sensible managing upwards. Not with this lot, because they don't care. They're not. They're not interested in necessarily sort of pleasing the public and making everybody happy. They're interested in making sure that they make money out of the transfers by inflating the value of the players that they've bought and selling them on, and trying to win stuff. Win stuff inflates the value of the football club. So that's all they're really interested in. I think he needs to remember that.
I totally agree with you, but he wants to get Chelsea back. He's a typical football manager. He's head coach, manager, call them what you want. They're always trying to push the boundaries and trying to, one more. But everyone can see that this side is too young and inexperienced. And I've said it before.
Totally.
We'll have to wait for them to grow organically. So stop with we've got to win the Premier League, got to win the Champions League, wait for them to come out. Why don't the owners come out and say that then, if that's the case? So, or the sporting directors, and there's enough of them. So Enzo Maresca, I understand where he's coming from, but yes, don't pick a fight with your owners because you ain't going to win.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of have said that, Scott Crook, haven't they? The sort of sporting directors, the briefings that we've got as the policy is not going to change.
Yeah, and also the briefing is that they're a bit surprised that Enzo has come out with these comments now, because they're saying nothing happened in those 2 days for him to come out and say it's been the worst 48 hours of my management career. So they're all a little bit perplexed about it. At the moment, I think they're quite relaxed because he is delivering results. But if results start to tail off and it looks like they're going to miss out on the Champions League, which I think is their ultimate aim for the season, then he could find himself in hot water. As I mentioned, it's not just Newcastle who are struggling away from home. Chelsea are struggling to put points on the board away from Stamford Bridge as well.
Okay, let's talk about another manager who's got a few bits to deal with. In fact, let's talk about two. Tottenham and Liverpool clash this weekend. Two sides far off from where they want to be. They meet at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Interesting interview with Mickey van der Ven midweek. Spoke a lot about Big Ange and his respect for him, his surprise at him being sacked, and also that Spurs players asked him to change tactics. How will Thomas Frank feel that one of his star men is doing an interview like this? Crook?
I'm not sure he'll be completely comfortable with it, particularly when we had those reports in one of the tabloids recently by our colleague Jack Ross, very respected journalist, that some of the players were confused by Thomas Frank's tactics and didn't like the fact he tinkered with the team so much. That's clearly come from within the Tottenham dressing room. And obviously Van der Ven was one of those players who showed a public display of petulance against their manager when he refused to shake Thomas Frank's hands after a game at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. So I think this interview really only adds the narrative that a lot of Tottenham players were frustrated that Ange Postecoglou was replaced. And as Adrian Durham has said a couple of times, I think there's a few of them that believe that maybe a bigger name manager than a guy who'd been at Brentford for the best part of a decade should have replaced him. I think that's massively disrespectful to Thomas Frank. I think it's also a display. There's some players in that dressing room who've got an overinflated opinion of their own ego, bearing in mind they finished 17th in the Premier League last year. But I think the cracks are there between player and manager, and it's one the Tottenham board have got to manage.
Cracks are there between Tottenham crowd and Tottenham team as well, which is a bit of an issue, which is why this game feels like a massive moment in the season for both Liverpool and Tottenham, because I've been at Tottenham a lot this season, Scott, and it just feels as if it's ready to go at any time. You know, they're desperate for some level of success and sustained sort of consistency. Really. They just want to see their team win, and they hardly ever do. So the idea that, you know, they've got to wait even more to see if this team turns, to see how long it takes for Thomas Frank to, as he says it, add layers to what's going on, is frustrating for them. And I do understand it with the Tottenham Hotspur supporters. I know Crook's very dismissive of it and says, you know, they've never won anything. Why should they expect to do so now? But what they did do was get themselves into a really good position in 2019, where they were in the Champions League final. Then they've gone on and won the Europa League this year, and they want to build on it. They want to go to that next step. They have a thirst for some sort of level of sustained sort of entertainment and success. But it does feel as if that isn't going to happen for a little while yet. So how difficult is it to perform in those circumstances where you know that the crowd is not quite with you and could go against you if something goes wrong?
Yeah, it's really not easy. I was with you at the European game, and I heard you talk that 3-0. It wasn't a 3-0 game, or they certainly conceded chances, and I
Yeah.
was 100% in agreement with you on what you were saying, because that's what I was saying as well. Back-to-back victories, yes. Back-to-back clean sheets, brilliant. But actually, they could easily scored 7, but conceded 3 or 4. And then to do that against Nottingham Forest, I think is almost as if you need that extra game to really bring the confidence in. And you're right, when you go to a home game, that's when the fans expect you to win. That's where you want to win. That's where you should be. It should be a fortress, and it's absolutely not. But actually, I listened to Crookie, and he should be given an award, because it was only hours after he and I were in Little Italy on Monday night. But he basically said that this is a Spurs side that, look, it's a big club. Of course, Spurs is a big club, but it's not a club that's won trophies on a regular basis. The Europa League was the first season where the Champions League teams didn't come down. There were poor teams that they were playing, although that's not their fault. You just got to win beat who's in front of you. But the judgment of a team is where they finish in the league. And I know Ange sort of claims, they gave up by January to the league to do the Europa League. They didn't. They weren't good enough. They had a lot of injuries, and they lost games. With the teams they put out, they should not have lost. So you're starting from almost rock bottom, despite the Europa League having been won. And it will take time. And I understand they pay the hard-earned money. It's very expensive to go to Spurs, and you're playing at home. It's a wonderful stadium. You want to see your team winning and playing well if possible. But they were so poor last season, it is going to take a long time. And I had a conversation with someone who was a Spurs fan. He's like, you see, it's not about Daniel Levy. It's not. He's not here anymore. I'm like, yeah, but they haven't had a window without Daniel Levy yet. This is still Daniel Levy's team and squad.
Yeah.
It's going to take Thomas Frank, and let's see. The pantomime villain has gone. So let's see now what Enoch and the Lewis family do, not just in January, but especially in the summer.
Well, Paratici's still there.
He is, and Langer, the sporting director, is getting a lot of stick as well. But this is going to sound like an axe to grind with Spurs. I'll never get over the fact they beat us in that Europa League final in Bilbao. I will take that disappointment to my deathbed. You know, when you look at them now,
salty.
Well, how on earth did Ruben Amorim manage to mess that game up? However, they're one of the clubs who want to sign Antoine Semenyo. They were one of the clubs who wanted to sign Antoine Semenyo in the summer. I would wager a lot of money. I would put my mortgage on it that Antoine Semenyo doesn't choose to join Tottenham. And there is the issue. They can talk about sporting success and ambition all they want, but if they're in a situation where they're competing with Manchester City, Liverpool, Arsenal, or even Manchester United, they're going to be fifth choice, and they always have been.
And it was kind of what we were saying actually on the pod. If you listened back to it on Monday when we were reflecting on why Tottenham find themselves in this situation, it's because two reasons. They don't pay enough in terms of wages to attract players that are on the way up, and they will not sell them at a price that makes it attractive to bigger fish. So therefore, it makes it very difficult if you are a player like Antoine Semenyo, who might think, actually, do you know what? It's not a good idea for me to go to Manchester City just now. I think he's a bad example because he's a little bit older, isn't he? But for example, let's just say he was a couple of years younger and he needed another step before he went to Man City or before he went to Liverpool, then Tottenham is the perfect step up the ladder, isn't it? It's up an extra rung, big club, big stadium, European football, etc., etc. You get used to it by going there. Then if you dazzle there, you get the opportunity to go to the next level. But the problem is Tottenham make it so difficult for you to move on once you're in the building that players of that level don't want to make the transition. They don't want to go the step. They'd rather just go, or they'll go somewhere else. That's because Tottenham historically have made it very hard for other people to buy their players, and that is a factor. You've got to understand where you are at this moment in the food chain, and you've got to utilize that to your advantage. You go back many years ago, like there are clubs like Southampton, for example. They didn't know where they were in the food chain, thought they could hold on to Virgil van Dijk when Liverpool came calling. Ridiculous. Even the people that worked at that club now go, that was a silly thing for us to do. We needed to be able to convince players that actually come to us, we'll make you look good and we'll sell you, because we're never going to win the Champions League, but we could take some players that might win the Champions League in the future, have them for a couple of years and then sell them on. That's not being defeatist. That's just being realistic about where things are. Over time, you then establish yourself, you get better, you move up the food chain, and then hopefully, eventually, you're part of that select group. That may never happen, but that's got to be the ambition, and it's got to be done in the right way. What's Liverpool going to look like in January, Crook? Because Salah's gone off to AFCON. Ekitike's got the chance to stamp his authority on the team because he's been their best attacker. Absolutely no doubt about that. So what they need to improve, though, don't they, in terms of getting squad numbers in? They need defenders, and they need them quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of the team, it seems like Arne Slot now has almost stumbled upon a system that is making them hard to beat again, and seeing them control games in a similar manner to last season. So I think that diamond midfield probably is here to stay, and I think ideally they want Ekitike and Isak both fully fit and working on a partnership at the top end of the pitch. In terms of reinforcements, obviously they are one of the clubs who are at the table for Semenyo. There is that relationship between him and Richard Hughes, the sporting director, who signed him for Bournemouth from the EFL and from Bristol City. My sense is that actually the other end of the pitch is more of a priority. As you say, they need some defensive cover. I think it was unfortunate that Leone, the young boy from Parma, got injured right at the start of his Liverpool career, because I think you would have seen him get more minutes on the pitch. Obviously, Mark Gay is still a target, but I'm not sure that situation is going to change too much from where it was in the summer to when the window opens in January. Oliver Glasner would still be loathed to let him go, so I think a summer departure is more likely. So I'm sure that their scouting network is looking around for a potential alternative. I wonder if they need a six as well, because I'm not sure that Alexis McAllister has been the same player that he was last season. So I wonder if they're a little bit short in that area as well in terms of protecting the back four. That protection hasn't really been there this year, has it?
And Gravenberch played there so well last season, but he struggled for injury at the beginning of the campaign, which in suspension, I think, was suspended for the first game, wasn't he? And it just has the whole formation of the team didn't work in the early part of the season. So maybe you're right. Maybe that's something that they look at in the January transfer window. Let's get stuck into another Saturday night game, because there's not one but two Premier League games on offer from talkSPORT this weekend. The 12:30 Newcastle against Chelsea, and then at the Hill Dickinson, it's Everton against the leaders. Tell you what, I'm looking forward to this one. Leaders Arsenal off to the Hill Dickinson, having had the week off courtesy of Palace, who play in the Conference League on Thursday. Crook and I are going to watch the Palace Academy tonight. We're looking forward to that. Have you done all your notes, by the way? Because we've literally got no clue who they're going to play tonight, Crystal Palace. They're just literally going to play the kids. They really are, because they've got two games in 48
I did warn
hours.
you about that. I think I was the first one to put that on your radar, that Oliver Glasner was planning on wholesale changes.
You did last Friday, you told me that.
Yeah.
Luckily, we got a little bit of a tip-off as to some of those who are going to be involved. Hopefully, that's going to come off, because otherwise we're going to be turning up and going, we haven't got a clue who these are, really, to be honest.
Number 99 to number 84.
Oh, I was doing a lot of work last night when I was in the car on the way home, of all of the academy kids and what they've been doing, etc., just trying to sort of
Ping those over,
cobble
please,
together
when you
at
get a
least.
chance.
Do it yourself. Do some work.
I'm busy down here.
Yeah. Doing what? Got a game of golf, have we?
You've carried him for 20 years. You can do another game.
Oh dear, oh dear. Anyway, talking about Arsenal, look, they got a win over Wolves the last time out. I was there on Saturday night at the Emirates. It weren't easy, Scott. It was a little bit turgid. Are Everton going to make this difficult for them as well?
Yeah, I mean, look, I was at the bridge where they made it very difficult for Chelsea, and Cookie can testify to that. And I was listening beforehand about, some people sort of saying, oh, it could be 6 or 7, could be even more. It just doesn't work like that. And I was thinking in my mind, yeah, it's going to be 3 maximum. I certainly didn't expect that though. And for them to, you know, 2 own goals, conceding in the 90th minute, you could see Mikel Arteta's face. He's like, oh my goodness, you could see it in the fans' face. And again, another own goal to get the winner. It was a really important victory. And in many respects, anything can happen against Aston Villa. We've seen that. Manchester City have seen that. But it was just important to bounce back and win. But for them to win in such a, unconfident way, this game is absolutely crucial. I really do, because City are coming. City are still not the side they were a few seasons ago. But going forward, they are fantastic. And they're more than capable of scoring more than they concede. So this is another one of those games where, yes, Newcastle recently went there and got a very good win, a very convincing win. But Everton at home, with that stadium, with that crowd, the way they're playing on the Moyes, it's a very, very difficult match, this one.
You've got to be at it, haven't you, if you're going to beat Everton? And as we've all said, we've all watched the Chelsea game at the weekend where Everton created opportunities, I'd say, Crook, rather than chances. The issue they've got is they don't look as if they're going to be ruthless enough to take some of those chances. That's the number one priority that David Moyes needs to solve.
Yeah, I was chatting to Tony Cascarino after the game, and I think he was writing a piece for the Times on Everton's firepower or lack of, and it just dawned on me mid-conversation a new nickname for Barry and Beto, the Chuckle Brothers, because their finishing is lamentable, and they're not the answer. Or if they are the answer, I don't know what the question is. I mean, to me,
You're
to you,
so
it's
out of order.
me to you is an exchange of missed opportunities when it comes to those two. So yeah, definitely a
He's been
striker
working on
is
this
a
all
priority.
week.
But that's, do you know what? Apart from that, they look a good unit. Pickford obviously is excellent defensively; they're fine. Grealish and Dewsbury Hall playing really well in midfield. Garner looks a talent as well. So it is literally just that number 9 that they've probably been crying out for since Lukaku, Everton.
Yeah, I mean, the issue as well is that it's a tight squad, right? So you get an injury, you have some sort of suspension, you lose a key player, you have a bit more of an issue. Dewsbury Hall, for example, had to come off in that game against Chelsea, and I think he'll be a big miss if he's not available this weekend. We spoke about Gyökeres on Tuesday, Scott. As a former Portuguese Super League player yourself, of some standing, by the way, the best ever foreign left back in Benfica's history at one stage. A former Benfica legend did say those words. You have your right to defend him, bearing in mind that your previous chairmanships of fan clubs were Jackson and Nunez, and now Maresca. Poor old Gyökeres is all I can say. Go for it.
Look, I'd still take Nicholas Jackson back at Chelsea right now. Just look at.
I'm joking with you. I'm joking with you.
I'm just answering back. I love you. I know you love me. With Gyökeres, do you know what? Would he be my number 9 right now? First choice? No, Mainoo. I'd have to give it to him. But he's struggled. Sesko struggled. Isak struggled. Visser's been injured. Solanke's been injured. I mean, how many good number 9s are there around the world? What I would say is he just gives Arsenal something different. He gives that kind of run the channels in behind, that physicality that is an option for Mikel Arteta. So while by any stretch of the imagination, he's not, that number 9 that we've sort of said for the last couple of years that Arsenal needs, he's another cog in the wheel that actually Mikel Arteta can use if and when he wants to. And he's had his own injury problems as well. So he could argue he's still not up to scratch at the moment.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I'll refer you back to the conversation that Dean Ashton had in Monday's pod, in when he said it's a different role, right? You used to have someone up alongside you who you could play off. Now you don't have that. You have to do a lot of the work on your own. You're isolated. You are a one-man band, and you have to toil basically. And chances are few and far between. Unless you're Haaland, most of them are what you would say is underperforming in terms of goals. The only other one that's really up there in terms of goals is Thiago at Brentford. And let's be clear, a lot of those are penalties. So you've still got to score them, and they've still got to be converted. But in terms of getting chances, there aren't that many, right? Even
No.
Haaland doesn't get that many chances because a number 9 is treated differently now. He's treated as the final part of the team, and the star players are the 10s and the wide players. Right, let's quickly touch on Leeds against Crystal Palace. Second Saturday night commentary on talkSPORT come from Fortress Ellen Road. This is on talkSPORT 2. Man, this is amazing. We've got 3 commentaries. Is that true? I didn't even know that. It's 3 games in 6 days, though, for Crystal Palace. It's going to be very, very tiring, Crook, which is why they're playing the 6th formers on Thursday night.
Yeah, and obviously they've got the quarter final early next week, which Oliver Glasner doesn't seem particularly delighted about. So it'll be interesting to see how strong he goes here. I guess he's going to have to name his strongest 11 in the Premier League because they're right up there in terms of a European place. But I'd see this quarter final as a huge opportunity as well. If Arsenal name the same sort of strength side they did against Brighton in the previous round, and Brighton had chances early in that game for it to be a very different outcome, then you'd fancy Palace's chances because they're such a difficult team to beat, particularly in a cup environment. This is a difficult game. Leeds in a good vein of form. I spoke to Keith Andrews after the game at Brentford last week, and he said they're a very different team to where they were even just 3 weeks ago because obviously Farke has changed the system. Calvert-Lewin is scoring goals, and there seems to be a confidence about them. So, yeah, a tough few days for Palace, no question about that.
Better performances all round from Leeds United. They were the best team in the game against Brentford, no doubt about that. And if they could, they'd have every single game as a night game. So 8 o'clock kickoff on a Saturday night is an absolute bonus for Daniel Farke at Ellen Road. They beat Chelsea, they drew with Liverpool, and there is every chance they could catch Palace cold here as well, especially with the injuries that they've got. No Munoz, no Kamada, who's going to be out for 10 weeks with an injury. Mateta is a bit of a doubt. Sarr's gone off to the Africa Cup of Nations. So Crystal Palace in for a little bit of a tricky period possibly over the next few weeks. Look, let's be completely honest about it. Oliver Glasner is fantastic and he'll probably come up with a way of solving the problems. But it does look as if they're going to be a little bit light over the Christmas period. Let's round things off with the league's informed side. Aston Villa against the great entertainers, Manchester United. 4-4, game of the season so far, Monday night. I must admit, I know you two were otherwise engaged, but I was fortunate enough to be at this football match. I thought it was absolutely terrific. It was so entertaining. Listen, some of the defending was poor, but the goal scoring was excellent. Manchester United played the best football I have seen them play since I can really remember. I can't remember the last time they played that good going forward. It was delight, and I knew it was a delight by using your eye test, but it was enhanced by the fact that at half time, the whole crowd just sort of roared and cheered and embraced it because it was like, where the hell has this been? It was great. The fact that they've got to go to the toughest place to go to in the Premier League doesn't make things easy on Ruben Amorim, Alex Crook.
No, particularly when you factor in the absentees. Got to say, Brian and Bumo, for all the positivity going forward, his form has tailed off a little bit. I think Ahmad is a much bigger miss because he's so central to how Amorim wants to play, and I thought he was great roaming forward down that right-hand side on Monday night. It'll be interesting to see if there is a change in system as a result of not having him available because there's not really another wing-back, not that he is a wing-back by trade, who can do all the things that Ahmad does. I think Cunha is going to be vital during Mbumo's absence. He was excellent the other night and thoroughly deserved his goal. Probably should have scored the first one, actually, that Ahmad ended up heading in from about half a yard out. So, yeah, it's going to be difficult. But this is a ground where United tend to do quite well, even when you don't expect them to. And I've got a lot of happy memories from trips to Villa Park, not just in the Premier League, but FA Cup semi-finals as well. law of averages. Villa can't keep winning. I thought they dropped points at West Ham last weekend. I've got this ridiculous idea United are going to go there and win 1-0. There you go. I'm just going to chuck it out there.
Yeah, interesting that they can't win forever, can they? Aston Villa, and they have been, and they've only lost once, I think, in about a season and a half at home. So it doesn't.
They've ridden their luck a couple of times, though. They weren't convincing against Wolves at home. Needed a goal from outside the penalty area, twice behind at West Ham. They're not blowing teams away. Even the game I did in Basel in the Europa League, they made a little bit of heavy weather of that, and that's why I think eventually this run is going to come to an end. That's why I don't think they are title contenders.
I did tell you this a couple of weeks ago when they played Young Boys. I was watching them. I was like, I'm not entirely sure. I thought when they went to Brighton, they wouldn't win there because they're just not in the right rhythm. But actually, I think some of that is by design. They don't expend a lot of energy, and the other part of it is I do think these long shots are part of the game plan. There is something in there that they're working on that gets them over the line. Look, he's a very good manager and he knows what he's doing. Amorim afterwards said that this is the way that the fans want Manchester United to play. I think he's right.
Yeah, so do I. Absolutely. Scott, I'll let you
got
take
a
it
bit of
over.
criticism, though, Scott. I mean, some people sort of raise their eyebrow, but I think he's right. I think that is true. And being in the stadium, everybody had a great time. Okay, there was disappointment they didn't see it out, whatever. But everyone had a great time. They walked out happy. I've been there when they played under Eric Ten Hag. I've been there towards the end of the Solskjaer era. I've been there when Moyes was in charge. They weren't having a great time. They're having a much better time now.
Yeah, look, I mean, again, it's been a bit better this season, but it's been very, very inconsistent still. But I'll let Crookie take over, really, of what a Manchester United fan feels. I think you've just said it there very well, Sam. What you felt in Old Trafford, that is Old Trafford's how it used to be, apart from the defence. So he's obviously got to sort that out. But just the attacking, free-flowing football, the team that I played against, Beckham, Keane, Scholes, Giggs, Sheringham, Cole, Solskjaer, York. It's just incredible to play against. And it was impossible pretty much at times to play against. And they're getting there. Again, like we spoke about Spurs, this is a United side that, again, is turning around the Titanic. And I personally think Villa will win this and will win this reasonably comfortable because I think at home, I think Manchester United are that still inconsistent side, and Villa at home especially are very, very strong, and I think they will find a way to win. But if United can find a way to win this one, then that would be a massive statement win when people are saying that Villa are in the title race. I'm like Crookie. I think with 6 games to go, they won't be in it. That's nothing against them. As they finish top 4, it's a wonderful season. But if United go to Aston Villa in the form they're in and get a victory, whether it's 1-0 or 2-1 or 4-3, then that would be a massive psychological boost for United and the fans for sure.
I will come to Crookie in just a second because he's got a lot to say, but he's got other things to answer about Manchester United. So I'm not going to let him go in on the atmosphere thing. I know that's how he wants them to play. On Villa, they're on a red hot run. They are on a unbelievable run of form, which has seen them win 9 in a row. It's the best in Europe right now. It could be 10 in a row for Emery at Villa Park, and only one other Villa manager has achieved that, George Ramsay in the early 1900s. But we've been talking about these long-range efforts for a long time and saying that they're getting them out of trouble. The XG on that is a complete outlier. They've got 8 more goals than their XG suggests they should have. And that, I think, tells you what we've been talking about over the last few weeks. I said it after the Young Boys game. Crook has reiterated it after he did the Basel game. This is not a team that create a bundle full of really good chances. What they do is they get themselves into good positions in matches where sometimes they get themselves into bad positions in matches and get back in it somehow, which is what they did against Brighton, which was what they did against West Ham United. But they have these superstar talents that can come up with these great moments of individual ability. Morgan Rogers, Emi Buendia, players that Tielemans who can score from distance. Even Boubacar Kamara scored an absolute cracker against Wolverhampton Wanderers. And a lot of those goals have come from outside the box. Now, some of that is to do with as teams get tired, they force them back. There's space created on the edge of the area, so they get the opportunity to get those shots away. That's a little bit by design. But at some point that will turn and they won't be able to keep doing that. And that is the thing. What we're all suggesting will end up being the time when they either have to get more out of Watkins and create more chances for him, or they will end up dropping down the table and not necessarily being the title challenger, which Unai Emery hopes that they can be. Back to Manchester United. Couple of things to do before we go. Housekeeping, Crook. Kobbie Mainoo, the T-shirt, the brother. Bruno Fernandes, the interview. The headline, the not being very helpful. Discuss.
Yeah, I'll start with Kobbie, and we had a good debate about this on our Inside Devils YouTube show, questioning how much he knew about the publicity stunt from his half-brother. I think the argument was probably shot down that he wasn't in on it when our own Andy Goldstein did his drive show wearing a free Kobbie Mainoo T-shirt, and Kobbie's personal Instagram account actually liked to post with that jumper in it. Now, we don't know if he does his own social media, but you'd imagine that, like our own Mr. Minto, whoever is doing his social media, Kobbie gets final say. So clearly he wants out. He's wanted out since the summer. He feels that Ruben Amorim doesn't have a lot of faith in him. I'll push back on what Adrian Durham was saying, having out United fans for applauding Kobbie when he came on the other night, because we're all frustrated. You know, this is a lad who's come through the academy, he scored the winning goal in an FA Cup final against Manchester City. He's played a key role in his country getting to a European Championship final. And I think the way he's been treated by Ruben Amorim is a betrayal of United's DNA, because the club is built on those young players. Now, obviously, there's got to be a little bit of individual responsibility, and you can argue, has Kobbie been at his best when he has come on? But if you know the manager doesn't fancy you, it's pretty hard to keep your chin up and not let it affect your confidence if you are quite a quiet lad, as he seems to be. So I think he'll probably go out on loan. I think he'll probably end up at Napoli, joining the likes of Scott McTominay. But I think his interest in the United hierarchy, I reported this earlier in the week, have made it clear they don't want to sell him because they still believe he does have a future at the football club, which maybe, again, brings Amorim's long-term stability into question. In terms of Bruno Fernandes, everything he said in the interview is factually correct. Amorim wanted him to stay. The owners and the board and Sir Jim Ratcliffe were willing to cash in if he expressed a desire to leave. I think he would have gone had his wife not intervened at the last minute and told him there was still work to be done at United. But it does feel like this could be his last season. He's got that release clause in the summer, £57 million for an overseas club. And I wonder if this is him sort of paving the way for his departure. And I wouldn't begrudge him, because he's been the best signing since Fergie left the club. His goals, his assists have been absolutely crucial. You can talk about, is he a good captain or not? I think in some ways he is, in some ways he isn't.
He's a brilliant player.
But what he hasn't done is been able to add the silverware that his talent deserves. So if he gets the chance to go and play for Bayern Munich and win the Bundesliga and challenge for the Champions League, good luck to him. I hope he doesn't end up in Saudi. I hope he stays, because I agree with you. I think actually the hate he gets, not just from rival fans, but from a lot of United supporters,
ludicrous.
He's a bit perplexing, because he's so good. If he played in a Fergie team, he would be talked about in the same way that Beckham and Scholes and Keane are, because he's that good.
He is that good, and he risks the ball. That's the thing about him. People groan because he gives the ball away more often than other people, but he risks the ball. You know, he puts it. He gambles because he's a forward-thinking player. He wants to make things happen. He tries to make that free kick the other night. Fantastic. You know, the captain comes up with a moment like that when you really need it. That's what he's all about. That's what he's done. You know, he never, ever, ever gets injured. He never misses a game, ever, and he wants to play. And he wants to be at Manchester United. So embrace that. I think he's terrific. And I think there's a little bit of not understanding his demeanour. That demeanour comes from frustration of wanting to succeed. He's Portuguese. He's got a certain different expression. Look at Jose Mourinho and the way he conducts himself. He's not always a happy, fun guy. He looks sometimes like he's miserable when he's not, because that's just like a little bit of the cultural demeanour. You know, you've got to deal with it. You know, look at Scott. You know, sometimes really miserable. spent too much time in Portugal. Scott,
Never
you
with
okay?
you, my friend. Never with you.
Yeah, never with me. Newcastle against Chelsea live, 12:30 Saturday on talkSPORT, same time as Southampton against Coventry. Big game. Round the grounds with the Minto, Durham and Deeney at 2:30 with Adrian. Bristol City Middlesbrough's on talkSPORT 2. Everton Arsenal, 8 o'clock. I'll be there at the Hill Dickinson Stadium. We've got Leeds Crystal Palace at the same time on talkSPORT 2. And then on Sunday, 2 o'clock, all the goals as they go in from the Premier League. It says including Aston Villa versus Manchester United. It's only Aston Villa, Manchester United on Sunday. So me and Perry Groves are going to the studio to sit in the warm and cuddle up our mince pies and watch it from the sanctity of talkSPORT. Crookster, thank you. Minto, thank you. We'll be back on Monday to review all of the weekend's action. And then we've got a special poll on Christmas Eve where we'll preview all the Boxing Day action as well. So if you get a new phone, a new podcast player, a new pair of headphones, you'll be able to get away from the family on Christmas Day and listen to our big preview. Hey, aren't we nice?